Hi, friends. Welcome back to what should have been the latest episode of Let's Say Nice Things About. But I watched I watched a pretty bad movie for this week, and as my mother used to say, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And if I followed that advice, this video would last probably 30 seconds, and I would probably end up like this again. So we're not going to do that. What we're going to do this week, I had to come up with a whole brand new video format idea for it. It's one that I've been kind of kicking around anyway, so want to see what you guys think. We're going to call this one In My Humble Opinion. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and fix this movie as much as physically possible. I have a bunch of notes, so sorry if it's a little boring in that regard, and I can't really find many clips to use. So yeah, what we're going to do is I'm going to say the couple positive things about the movie that we can kind of draw on. And then what we're going to do from there is we're going to storyboard. And we're going to try and see if we can't fix this movie, kind of make it a little bit nicer because, good God, guys, this movie was really brutal. So this week I watched Revolution from 1985, starring Al Pacino and Donald Sutherland and Natasha Kinski, who I would be referring to as Kinski because that's the only part of her name I'm 100% confident I can say properly. So basically, the positives are those three actors. They did good with they did fine with what they were given, and they weren't given a whole heckin' lot to deal with. So this movie is I'm gonna read from my notes a little bit. Uh, the main issue with this movie is it looks like it was completely butchered on the editing floor. And what I mean by that is, as you're watching this movie, if you so choose to watch this movie, I would not blame you in the least if you did not watch this movie. Is that it almost comes off like they are contractually obligated to only have Al Pacino and Donald Sutherland for X amount of time or X amount of lines. So they're basically building this movie off of B footage, and the story doesn't really come together very well. The synopsis of the movie is as such: is a trapper, Al Pacino, joins the fight against the British in 1776 after his teenage son is tortured by a redcoat, Donald Sutherland. So here's the problem. This movie, based on that synopsis, to me, sounded a lot like some sort of early prototype version of what could be the Patriot. And that's not what you get in this movie at all. That scene does not happen until an hour into the movie. So the fact that they have it as a synopsis shows you that they're really grasping. Um, so we could. So what we'll do is we're gonna storyboard this a little bit. So give you a quick rundown of this movie. It's American Revolutionary War movie. Getting confused with Gettysburg already. It's an American Revolution movie. Al Pacino and his son are fur trappers basically. So they have a boat at the beginning, and they're in New York, and they're trying to get more supplies and then head out and do their thing. Their boat gets taken by the American Revolutionaries, which is portrayed as like a mob, and they're giving a promissory note that Congress or the American government will give them money for the boat. Um, so then they go and try and do that, and they're obvious. The government is like, "Oh, we can't pay you right now because we're going to fight the British, but in 2 weeks, when we push the British back into the sea, we're gonna get you that money." And that's kind of like a recurring gallows humor kind of joke. And so actually, the movie starts out great. So that happens. Meanwhile, Al Pacino's son ends up accidentally, he ends up signing up for fighting in the American Army, which is actually a really good plot hook. And then, because he signs up for 5 shillings basically, and he wants to be helpful to his dad, and so Al Pacino tries to get him out of it. the American soldiers are made to look like jerks, and they're like, "Oh, he signed right here. He signed right here. The only way you're going to see him is if you sign up too." So Al Pacino ends up signing up too. So it's a great setup. That's the setup of the movie. Unfortunately, it goes completely off the rails at this point. So Kinski's character is introduced, and they spend way too much time on her character. They overly talk about how her character, her family is basically the British. They're very like they're pro-British. They want they want to be a part of the British Empire still. All this stuff all this fun stuff. And Kinski's character wants to be revolutionary. Great, cool, awesome. That's it. That's really all you need. But it goes on and on and on with her side of the story, and her side of the story is not that interesting. Um, she ends up watching Al Pacino and his son sail away, um, or like they're rowing away with the rest of the new recruits to the first major battle, which is when we meet Donald Sutherland's character, and they basically go through an engagement and blah blah. What's it gets a little weird to talk about, so let's try and storyboard it from here. So up to that point, we're totally fine. We've established Al Pacino and his son are part of the American Revolution by not basically they're pressed into service. Kinski's character is um, pro-revolution, doesn't want to be part of the British anymore. Excellent, awesome, established. Donald Sutherland's character in the movie proper does not get actually introduced until about an hour in. We do see him in the first battle, and in the only scene where there's engagement or like interaction between Sutherland and Al Pacino in the entire movie is in that scene, and that's it, which is absolutely wild to me as I was watching this movie. So we're gonna fix that a little bit. So what we would do next, I think, is we see after the battle a distraught Al Pacino. Kinski's character shows up as a nurse because there's a scene where she basically sits in on the surgery for a couple minutes, and she gets basically we would have that be the scene where she gets inspired to be a nurse, kind of like a Nightingale sort of situation where she is very selfless and wants to just help the patriots and everything. So that's what I would do for that part. So then we basically reintroduce these characters together. Al Pacino is distraught. Oh, my son's been taken. So Al Pacino and Kinski's character would then go to the British camp basically to try and sneak his son out. So we flash over to the British camp, and we see Donald Sutherland being, the dastardly British, whatever, torturing his son. In the movie proper, what ends up happening is Al Pacino's son is basically beaten. His feet are beaten so he can't run away. And it's because he bites the British commanding officer, and because the British commanding officer acts really sketchy towards him in a um, very PDF file kind of way. If you get my meaning, it's very strange. But anyway, so we'd flash forward, we have that, but we'd basically make Donald Sutherland just the villain straight up. No, nothing to do with that. There's also a really interesting dynamic between Donald Sutherland and his son in this movie, where Donald Sutherland's trying to teach his son to be a British soldier. So we could have had a really cool. The movie itself does not explore this, but what I would want to do is have a sort of yin yang between Donald Sutherland and like Donald Sutherland and his son, and Al Pacino and his son, and so we can kind of see the dichotomy between the two. So we have Al Pacino and Kinski show up, and they end up taking his son out of the camp. In the movie proper, what happens is Donald Sutherland's son, say that 5 times fast, ends up seeing them but doesn't say anything, doesn't raise the alarm. So Donald Sutherland is like, oh, it'll be okay, but he's obviously disappointed. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed sort of situation. And Donald Sutherland's character ends up sending out two Native Americans who are loyal to the British as like scouts to go get back Al Pacino and company. Al Pacino ends up killing them. The scene that happens in the movie, it reminds me a lot of Rambo. It's a very Rambo looking scene. um, but then another Native American tribe shows up and basically does like the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of situation. So what I would do there is start having Al Pacino learn from um, the Native Americans. So we have kind of like a the Patriot meets Rambo meets Dances with Wolves a little bit. So, but basically, we have Al Pacino being taught how to be a scout. So he ends up, and we can do like we would do like a montage or something like that. We can see Al Pacino being a scout for the American Army, and then meanwhile we see Kinski becoming a better nurse, better Nightingale type character. And then on the other side, we see like scenes of like Donald Sutherland teaching his son to be a proper British soldier. And have the whole someone tries to escape, and this time his son does sound the alarm, and then you see the regular like smirk, or like not smirk, but like the smile of approval, like, oh yes, he's finally learning, like that kind of dichotomy. So then and then we would do stuff like have them be at like the Battle of Valley, be at the Valley Forge, and the like big historic moments. And then of course at the end of the movie it would have to be Yorktown, because every Revolutionary War movie needs to have Yorktown involved. It's just a rule. I didn't make it up. I'm sorry. And we basically have it be where it's like a scouting force versus scouting force. So in the movie proper, what happens is they see that Donald Sutherland is over there, and they're like, we got to get that guy. And then for whatever reason, Donald Sutherland, his son, and two Native Americans who are allied with the British go down to the beach. Al Pacino, his son, and two Native Americans that are loyal to the American side ambush them basically. And it's a very anticlimactic moment for the movie. It was very this movie, guys. This movie is so strange. And I know I'm kind of shooting the breeze a little bit here, and I'm sorry. This is going to be a lot less formal than something else. This is again just a new video format I'm trying. I give you an idea of what I'm thinking when, because I'm a writer, right? Like I enjoy writing, so I want to just kind of storyboard and maybe brainstorm like how we can make this movie better, so we don't have to like. If we had a mulligan, we can try and make this movie better. That's the whole idea of this new video series. Um, but man, it was brutal. But anyway, so in our version, what we would do is we would have Donald Sutherland, and we could do like a Donald Sutherland, Al Pacino cat and mouse sort of situation. I can't believe I'm saying this and like they didn't do it in this movie. There is like so many crazy scenes in this movie that were completely unnecessary, and I don't know why they went the direction they did. It's If you can find it for free somewhere, like watch it out of morbid curiosity, because I would love to hear what you all would think. But I also don't want to torture you with this 2 hour movie. Like it's bonkers. Um, so we do this cat and mouse thing, and we have basically Al Pacino's character, the Americans, obviously best him. Um, Maybe not kill him, but they beat him. They best him, and then we have the British surrender at Yorktown, and then the hooray, we're awesome, wonderful, all this other stuff. And yeah, roll credits, and we don't have any of the nonsense. Because let me this I know this sounds kind of like a beat for beat Patriot ripoff, but like let me tell you what we've got going on in this movie that's wild. We have earlier on in the movie, Al Pacino is basically pretending to be the fox in a fox hunt because there are no foxes in the area. And that lasts way too long. That's probably a 10-minute sequence. It's absolutely brutal. There's a scene where Kinski's character stabs a British officer in the nether regions with basically a hairpin, because the her family is trying to get her daughters to. It's very Jane Austen style, trying to get the daughters married to these British officers, and Kinski's character is just not having any of it. it just lingers too long, and there are such there are really good beats in the movie. There are good beats, but oh my gosh, the movie has absolutely no direction. Absolutely none. Um, I don't even know how else to describe it. Because like the lucid scenes come through occasionally, where you're like, oh, okay, I can see like where this fit in. But then there's other scenes, and you're just like, why are we making these choices, guys? Like, what happened here? Again, this movie got completely obliterated on the editing floor, and I don't know what happened. I like I said earlier, it's like it had a bunch of B footage, and it's just bad. But anyway, I'm rambling. But yeah, that's what I would do for the story for the first 12 minutes of this video we were talking is try and shape the story up, because again, there's some interesting stuff here. There's the Donald Sutherland and his son, and the Al Pacino and his son, and we could do like a yin yang thing. We could follow Kinski's character as this nurse Nightingale type character. Um, and then at the end, Al Pacino like gets together with Kinski's character, which is just very weird because you get the impression like there's a big age gap, which isn't like the worst thing, but I think from the point where they meet, and they if I remember correctly, they meet and she's basically encouraging the mob to take their boat, which doesn't sound like the greatest way to start a relationship, in my humble opinion. Um, and then so between that point and the point where they get married, they have like one real conversation in Valley Forge where she finds out that Al Pacino is still alive and it's been with the Native Americans and all that stuff. Guys, this movie is just brutal. If you can watch it for free somewhere, if you can find it on like Pluto or Tubi, or if it's up on YouTube somewhere, like I don't know, but like this movie is just an absolute mess. Absolute mess. And I really hope I can get a tax write off for it. In some ways, this is I hate to be that guy. Again, I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to spin this positive. But this movie is like worse than Battlefield Earth in a lot of ways. And there's even some weird like commentary stuff. Like they're trying to be anti-capitalist a little bit because they have Kinski's father's character is like a businessman, and it's like the classic, the business is just going to go whatever direction the wind is blowing. So like everyone's all about revolution, so they're like, oh yeah, it's all about revolution. And then it becomes apparent the British are going to come back to New York and like probably win and take it over. So then he's all like, oh yes, it's all the British and whatever. And then the Americans are made to look really bad. Like I honestly think the Americans are made to look worse in this movie than the British do, based on the beginning, based the way they have um, Al Pacino's boat taken and just like um, basically thrust into military service because they needed it, and then the way they're very unfeeling after the son, who Al Pacino's son, who at the time is portrayed to be about probably 11ish, and they're just like, oh, the only way you're going to see him again is if you enlist too. And then at the very end, Pacino gets to take that promissory note that they gave him at the beginning, and he goes to cash it in, and it's like, oh, you'll get 150 acres and like however many dollars, and he ends up with like $40 in his pocket. Like, and then he gets into an argument with a American soldier who like has a missing eye and everything. Like, it's just, guys, this movie's really bad. So anyway, I'm gonna try and have. I was caught off guard for this movie to try and do this new format of video, in my humble opinion. So I apologize for that. Um, I'm gonna try and clean up if I know I'm doing it moving forward, because this is the first time I've had to like pivot, and I wanted to do something Fourth of July related, so I thought this would be fun. And for the first 10 minutes, I was just like, I mean, I could see why people don't like it, but like, I don't know. And then it goes completely off the rails. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I'm sorry I'm like wish washy, and this is going to be very like poorly edited, and it's going to be loosey goosey. So I really apologize for that. If you guys like this idea of, in my humble opinion, as far as doing this, the main idea being like storyboarding and trying improving a movie, if we could do a do over, let me know in the comments. Um, and I'll try and be a little bit more organized next time. Writing the script for this was brutal, and then I realized I wouldn't be able to just read it off, because I have a poor memory that way, and there wasn't any footage that I could use really of this movie that was any good. Which goes to show you how much nobody likes this movie. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Happy 4th of July. Sorry this went a little everywhere. Please let me know what you think in the comments. If you like what we're doing here, please like, subscribe, all that fun jazz. And I appreciate you all so much. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Take care, and I hope I see you in the next one.